Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this virtual conversation with Black Film Space on what is the last day of Women's History Month. I'm Karen Coleman. I am the founder of The Future of Film is Female, which is an organization that amplifies the work of all women filmmakers through our Short Film Fund, our commitment to exhibition, and our community building programs. For the past 6 days, we have had 6 extraordinary short films guest curated by Black Film Space on The Future of Film is Females Dreaming, which is on our website. And it is such a pleasure to have all of the filmmakers here tonight to discuss their work. I would like to thank all of them for not only being on the platform, but for being here tonight. And I'd also like to send a special thanks to Reggie Williams at Black Film Space for making all of this possible. Before we begin, I just want to let everybody know that the conversation with the filmmakers will be about 45 minutes. And then we're going to open it up to the audience for audience questions. So if you have any questions, just drop them into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. I'd also like to let everybody know that the films that we're talking about tonight are still streaming on thefutureoffilmisfemale.com/BFS. So if you haven't seen them, or if you want to encourage your friends, family, and neighbors to see them, we would all very much appreciate it. So it's now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for this evening, Lande Yusuf, who is a writer and a director and co-founder of Black Film Space. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thanks for having us. We're so happy to be a part of this program and to join your celebration of Women's History Month. So I guess we're going out with a bang tonight, right? So before we get into this discussion, I just want to read some bios and also just like some personal perspectives of what motivated these filmmakers to make these projects. So first we'll start, I'm sorry, not bios, excuse me, descriptions of their pieces.
I'm going to head out, so have fun.
Okay, thanks. So excuse me, yes, we're going to start out with some descriptions of their pieces and then also just some personal motivations on why they made these projects. So we'll start off with Felicia Pride, who is the filmmaker behind Tender. The film is described as, after an unexpected one-night stand, 2 women at very different stages of their lives share an even more intimate morning after. And what motivated Felicia to make this project is, first of all, this is her directorial debut, so congrats for that. But it's also a film about Black women loving themselves and each other fully. It depicts the scars, the joy, the queerness, the desire, and vulnerability of these women. Felicia is fascinated and fortified by the bonds that she shares with Black women and wanted to try to capture that power on screen. She also wanted to explore emotional intimacy, sexuality, and loss from a Black woman's lens, which we don't see nearly enough. Hi, Felicia.
Hi, I just want to say how happy I'm here, and thanks so much to the Future of Film is Female and Black Film Space. I'm just so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. So the next filmmaker is Nicole Taylor Roberts. She is the filmmaker behind 410 Stamped. The film is described as an 18-year-old singer, Rashida, finds the music of her voice on one wild night that has her navigating racism, mental illness, and romance in the company of an admirer who has something to hide. That's quite a log line. And in terms of what motivated Nicole to make this project, this story was in her head since 2004 as a feature film. She didn't have the agency to make it then, so the story got shelved over time. Every story has its moment, and this film's timing wasn't up until now. One of the themes in the film, which is racism and phobias for the co-star, are equal disorders, and she doesn't believe that it would have resonated back in 2004. So it's kind of, I guess, serendipitous that it's coming out now. And as she stated, this film made her project oddly prophetic because she never imagined that it would be completed amid the Black Lives Matter movement at the height of the pandemic as well. So she wanted to make this project to put Black females in the lead show the unsaid things about interracial attraction, and comment on the misogyny and its microaggressions. Next filmmaker, and welcome. next filmmaker is Cheryl, who is behind Scar Tissue. And the film is described as a pastor of a church and his wife face their worst nightmare when he is told by someone in their congregation that his wife cannot conceive. In the inevitable aftermath, they walk the thin line between hanging in there and hanging it all up. An inevitable conversation between a young pastor and wife reveals infertility and secrets of the past. It leaves them to walk the thin line between, sorry. I wrote that sentence twice. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. And Cheryl wanted to reveal the physical and mental scars endured by couples dealing with infertility. And in this short, this narrative is a part of a larger story about the fragility of a pastor's humanity and spiritual side. Welcome, Cheryl. Thanks for coming through tonight.
Happy to be here.
Next filmmaker is Courtney Smith, who's behind Bow Your Heads. This short film is a horror / suspense story about Thanksgiving. What starts out as a seemingly normal Thanksgiving dinner turns into a night of horror when the matriarch of the family becomes possessed. Some reactions. Courtney got this idea one night when she was at a family dinner and her own aunt was running her mouth, successfully getting on her nerves. Then she thought about what it would be like if you could bring up all the issues never talked about in a Black family. She just wanted to make a film that had meaning, but also was a lot of fun. And also have the audience also question their own family dynamic, which I definitely did. So welcome, Courtney. The next filmmaker hi. The next filmmaker is Haley Anderson, who's behind Get Out Fast. The film is described as living out of a motel. A 15-year-old Tommy makes a drastic decision in order for his siblings to escape the heat before the summer's over.
Sorry, that's another film of mine, but it's totally cool.
Okay.
Yeah, this one's just about a kid who misses his friend. It's about it.
Okay, no problem.
That's cool.
All good. But Haley Elizabeth Anderson is a filmmaker, writer, and visual artist from Houston, Texas. She currently attends New York University's graduate film program as a Dean's Fellow. Her recent experimental piece, Presence, recently played at the closing event for the first large-scale Jean-Michel Basquiat exhibition in the UK, which was entitled Boom for Real. Her short film, Get Out Fast, premiered at the 2017 Slam Dance Film Festival, where she was named a filmmaker to watch. A graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, she is the recipient of numerous awards, including the Sarah Driver Production Grant and the 2017 Wasserman King Award. She's currently in post-production for her fourth narrative short film, Summer Animals, which was made with the generous support from Kodak. Haley's work has been featured in the New Orleans Film Festival, Lone Star Film Festival, ID Magazine, Cultured Magazine, No Budge, Vimeo, and the Barbican in London. So we didn't get much of a motivational statement, but we'll get that later on. It was more of a bio. And then lastly, Stephanie Phillip, who is behind Sweet Nothings. The film is described as a young woman tries to open herself up to love and realizes that the only obstacle standing in her way is herself. This is also more of a bio. Stephanie is a Cleveland native and Brooklyn-based writer. She's a proud HBCU alum, Central State University, and released her first short film, Sweet Nothings, in 2020 that was screened at the Bronze Lens Film Festival. She's also written for the first season of Tough Love LA that premiered on Clio TV and TV One in 2020. Although she wants to explore different genres, she specifically focused on displaying Black relationships on screen. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. Shout out to you all for volunteering your works for this celebration of Women's History Month. So to jump right into the discussion, I'd love for you all to talk about what you believe women have to offer to the film industry. Because I know as a fellow filmmaker myself, and a lot of times when I'm watching projects, I can a lot of times tell if a woman was behind the piece. So I'd love if you all, could talk about what you believe women have to offer, and, anybody, you could jump in. You don't have to take turns. I could also shout you out.
I'll
All right,
start.
go ahead, Cheryl.
I think like anything, a woman is a nurturer. So I feel like they're going to nurture the story. Like you said, sometimes you can watch things and see the little nuances that you guess come from a female, come from the estrogen, I guess. And so I know that when I play the director role or a producer role, I really try to nurture the project thoroughly.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? If not, we can move on to the next.
I do.
Okay.
Honestly, I just thoroughly enjoy like the realism of when a woman is actually being portrayed and you can see it from a woman's perspective, because nothing pisses me more off than a woman running in a horror movie or any kind of movie in heels. Like, it is almost impossible. So yeah.
And I'm assuming horror is your thing. I mean, considering also the nature of your project.
Horror is kind of my thing, not fully though.
Okay, cool. All right. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? If not, we could jump to it. Okay.
I think we tap into different aspects. I think we, and I know like I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like on set we're able to tap into different things because we just run the set differently. I think when you run something differently, it's slower and with like more peace and consideration for everyone, then you're able to tap into different things that I don't think someone who's really like a lot of men are very like controlling and not saying that women aren't like can't command a set. It's not that. It's that I think when everybody feels less stressed, I think women tend to run less stressful sets. It gives room to tap into other things that maybe when you're super stressed, you can't see. So I just think there's a lot of care. That's a different kind of care that is put into the film. And you can kind of feel it, like small details, small intimate details, I think.
Nice. That's a great segue because I was going to also talk about, did you all go into, I know Haley, your project depicts male characters, but for the rest of you ladies, did you feel like, you were very deliberate in how you wanted your Black female characters to be depicted on screen? And like, there was this like personal investment in that, especially as, again, a woman filmmaker and on top of that, a Black female filmmaker as well.
I think for me, especially because it was based off of something in my life, I was very careful to, I didn't want her to be too much of something. I wanted to make sure that I left room for people to think of her in different ways. And then especially the interaction between her and the male character, her co-star. I wanted it to be where you looked at them and thought many things versus, oh, she, like something definite. Because a lot of times I watch things, especially with Black women, and we are depicted as controlling. We have to have it a certain way. I wanted to show her playful side. It was a lot of different things that when I wrote it, and then also being on set, that I wanted to make sure she had those different aspects to her versus just people being able to look at her just one particular way.
Yeah, I'll add on that. I was really wanting my two women characters to be fully realized and layered. And then also because the movie's called Tender, I wanted to be able for them to be tender and vulnerable. So it was very important for me to establish a tone on set that would make space for that tenderness and that vulnerability. It was also important to me to lens it with a female actually behind the camera. Our DP, Ludovica Isadori, who was actually moving with them as she's holding the camera, was also very important to me. So yes, absolutely.
I can say in mine too, to your point, because it's about infertility, to just show, although the male is positioned as the main character, and even in my log line it said a pastor and his wife. I wanted to show the scars they put upon her but I had to show her voice as well, you know, coming out of that. And did he hear her ultimately in the end talking about, you know, their mental scars as well as physical scars that I have. And so I remember all the conversations we had because I had a male DP, I had a male director. But to be that voice to say infertility affects the entire family, but it really resides within the female who carries the child. So to have that voice and remain constant with that female voice was important.
Got it. And Nicole, you know, your project was about like a young woman trying to like assert her voice, you know, find herself in many respects, which I appreciated because, you know, that's not something you see often with young Black female characters.
Mhm.
So what motivated you to take that approach and kind of fleshing out her character?
The nuance of her internal space, I was really fascinated about that. It's something that I want to make sure that was on the screen and it was colorful. And it felt like there was this internal fire that eventually was going to burst out when she sang. And something I noticed on set that I had to obviously set the tone, but sometimes I had to make sure that my DP found her. So like the very like theme of the film, I saw translated in the way that my team was handling her as the focus. And I was like, you guys have never seen a Black girl as the lead. And so it was it was like levels of paradigm that were happening there. So when I finally, when we finally came to a synergy of how to keep her as the center of the narrative, then that's when things started to flow. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
So even in the workplace and you trying to creatively depict, you had to deal with that obstacle. That's crazy.
Yep.
Oh man, I have too, so I get it. And then Haley, also you were depicting male characters, right? And obviously this was your vision. But I know that I have been on set where sometimes I feel like I have to assert my credibility and say, no, I'm clear on what my vision is here. Thanks for the input. Did you ever have any of those moments with these characters?
Not on set. I was in New Orleans, and all of the kids that I was working with were Southern, and I felt super old. They called me Miss Haley all the time. So the set was amazing. But I think there are always moments where you're like, oh, does everybody trust what I'm doing? And I think it was a really ambitious short at the time. And there is always, as a woman, I always feel like, do people trust me to make this? Like, you kind of have to prove that your brain works sometimes. But I think after, when I released the film, every guy at a film festival came up to my DP and asked as if like he had made it. I don't think it was a thing that somebody expected a woman to make. And the funny thing is because I wrote the main character, the narrator, was a woman, a girl first. And I was just like, I just felt like I wanted to talk about male friendship and continue to. I think I'm going into a feature of the same project and talk about male vulnerability from a feminine perspective. So there's a lot of thoughts, and I put my own thoughts and feelings into it. And I wanted to, just talk about, tenderness between friends, but have a lot of femme energy, in that. And I think with the project, it's about kind of exceeding expectations or kind of changing people's perspective about what this looks like. I guess it's a very male type of film. I don't know, but that's how I felt like it was perceived when it first came out. It was just like, I'm right here. I did that. So yeah.
Nice. I also wanted to ask you about your choice of voiceover, because that's always like a thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's always seen as like, oh, you just couldn't figure out what was happening on set, right? So you just had to slap it on. No, the voiceover was there from the first draft. It was always that. It was really a brother and a sister, really. it was originally called My Brother's a Train Hopper. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it was always there, always. And I always knew it was like going to be images with vignettes. That's the whole thing. It's like sometimes you have to, when people talk about the film, I think you always have to kind of prove that, no, my brain was working and this is all very deliberate. It's not a mistake. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Stephanie and Felicia in particular, can you talk, and to a degree, Nicole, can you talk about how you wanted to showcase like romance on screen, and also like what directing choices you feel amplified what you were trying to say about your film?
Sure. Go ahead. Go.
Go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted it to be a tease. It's like, it's to tap into the trope, especially like 90s television or like 90s film. Whenever there's like an interracial couple, it never happens. Or like it happens and then somehow mysteriously, like, the female, she goes, or something stupid, So I wanted to show that, replicate that, but just have it as a tease and then the reward at the end. So when I approached those scenes, it was always lyrical. That's when we went on Steadicam to make it feel like we were moving and when we were in our character's mind. It was atmospheric. It could have just been silence, but that's what I wanted there. So
I think for me, when I wrote it, I wanted it to, show some form of, I wanted her to be a hopeless romantic. I wanted, again, and going back to an earlier question, a lot of films we see with Black women, they start off hard, quote, hard in the beginning, and then it takes them the whole film to soften up, for lack of better words. And I wanted her to be like, but I wanted her to be vulnerable throughout the whole film. And when you mentioned voiceovers with Haley, I have a lot of voiceovers too, and people told me that. But I wanted you to be able to see her vulnerability. I wanted her to look as if she was this hopeless romantic. It was, especially with directing it, I worked a lot with the actors, and even like right before, like a week before we shot, we went like bowling, and I wanted them to interact more with each other, because I felt like my actress was the total opposite of the character. So I wanted to see, like, I wanted her to get comfortable, and I think we did a lot of pre-work, so that when I got on set, it was a bit easier for her to be able to play the role that, I had for her. But definitely wanted to show something totally opposite from what at least I'm used to when I watch TV and film.
I was interested in, Tender, the premise is a one-night stand. So I also write things that are aspirational. I'm like, I would love to have a great one-night stand where you want to stay the next day. You know what I mean? So what I was interested in exploring in that is like, can you have an intimacy that feels real and deep after something that is supposed to be not real and deep, right? So intimacy was really important to me. And then just friendship, like the having a romance that has an underlying current of friendship that feels safe, where these two women can feel safe and open. So I was very interested in those aspects of romance and in desire. I mean, we don't necessarily show the one night stand, but I think it's important to show Black women's desire, and that it is full and hot and all of that. So those were things important to me.
Awesome. Nice. Courtney, I'm interested to know, like, what was the response to your film, especially from like Black audiences? Because, we take our religion very seriously. and you kind of just like swung it out the park. You know, you gave a familiar setting, which was like the family dynamic holiday dinner, but like you went like way left with it, which I love, but I just was curious about that.
They loved it, honestly, because it was something they weren't expecting. And like, I guess when I like the initial 5 minutes is like, oh, I can resonate. I'm familiar. Everybody else seems very like happy and go lucky. And then, you know, it turns left. And I'm just kind of happy that it turned out that way, because it's like you're there, but you're not there. Like, honestly, everybody has that kind of fantasy of like, wow, she's annoying, but also she's my aunt, you know? So yeah. Like my mom loved it because she's also in it. So
Nice. So the actual aunt that motivated this, did she respond to the film?
There is no aunt because she doesn't exist.
Oh, I thought she did. Okay.
Oh no, she does exist, but like I know that a couple of my family members are watching this right now, so she does not exist. This is not based off a real person.
All right, so we're just gonna slide on to the next. Cheryl, you know, I love that you tackled infertility. I think it's something that needs to be discussed way more for Black women. You know, what is your hope with this project? You know, I know you talked about the fact that it affects the entire family. What do you want people to realize about what Black women go through individually when it comes to infertility? Like, are you mainly dealing with, you know, just the family dynamic, but do you also want to tackle like, you know, the medical industry, anything like that? Is there like an expansion of this project in any form? I'm just curious.
Well, this story came from, I started off as a novelist. So I had 3 novels, and this is just one of the pieces that I pulled off to do this short. Maybe even sort of hoping that it could be like a proof of concept. But with infertility, just like the name, of course, the 3-book series has nothing to do with this. It's about it's a part of it. But the 3-book series has different names. But I pulled out scar tissue particularly because of the mental scars as well as the physical scars. She had scarring from an abortion, and so she couldn't conceive. And it's something she knew going into the marriage, just never figured out a way to tell him. And being in church and being transparent as the first lady, she told someone in the congregation. It got back to the pastor. But basically, then his reaction after that, you know, it's the mental scarring over top of the physical scarring. And technically scars can heal, but the process that it takes to heal. And so that's what I sort of wanted to show in the film.
Got you. Great. Awesome. I'd love, you know, if all of you can talk about what you feel was your biggest takeaway in terms of craft development in making these pieces. What do you think you're going to take with you to the next project in making these projects, these films, excuse me. Haley, you can start off and then everybody can just jump in.
Sure. I think each project, it's like always a lesson in like how to trust yourself and not how to like, you don't have to question, like sometimes when you have a gut feeling, you should just go with it, and you should trust yourself. And the filmmaking is always going to feel a little weird, like you're kind of an island in the middle of nowhere. There's always going to be that moment on set where you're like, oh God, what do I do? And you just have to go with it. And then, oh man, there's so much I learned. I think just how to run a set, and that it's from the top down. And I don't really even like hierarchies and anything like that, but that's the whole thing. It's kind of like you have the right to set the tone, I think, on your set. And yeah, I think that was one thing I learned.
Awesome. Yeah. Nicole?
I learned just to make sure that like everyone around you supports you, like at the get. And then when you detect that something is amiss, just, make a quick change, and keep it moving. My film was a very ambitious film. Like, a character of that film was the world. So it was important for me to have like a world. So next short I do, I'll be mindful just to give myself more time under the constraints of this particular project. We didn't, but I love worlds. So giving myself to create worlds is what I've learned, like give myself time. So.
Nice.
I can go. So the biggest thing I learned was to not only make sure the biggest thing is making sure that people are good to work with, because they can know their job, but if they aren't good to work with, it's going to be terrible. And I really realized that when I was on set. It was my first project ever. Mostly didn't know what I was doing, but the people around me were really supportive, even moving up to like during pre-production and all of that. They were willing to teach me and tell me like, oh, you have to have this, or did you get this? And even on set, like they just kept me going, and we went way longer than we were supposed to, but everyone they didn't let me see it. So, and I really needed that, especially, trying to just figure it out. So that's my biggest thing. Like you can find so many people that know how to do the job, but not everybody is going to be good to work with.
Got it. Cheryl?
So many lessons. Like Stephanie said, this was my first project. Just jumped in after doing parts of it on the stage and coming from the book. And the team is very important. But I learned so much in this past year just following people like Felicia, like how she positioned her story, really understood how to promote it. I watched the case study, and some of the things that she was doing, and saying like, if a story is worth telling and it has legs, if we're dealing with an issue like infertility, that you build in that part of the marketing and where you want to see it land. I just wanted it done, right? The way you want to see it land, you got to sort of have that in your mind in the beginning.
Got it. Courtney?
For me, it was more along the lines of like kind of like just trusting myself, because like I don't know, like filmmaking's a lot more than just shooting and all that other kind of stuff, because like if you don't know yourself, then it's kind of hard to kind of trust who you are as a person. And I kind of was going through this transition where like I was using other people's voices when I could have just used my own. And for this film, I kind of compromised some things, not a lot, but some things that I wish I kind of did differently, because I was listening to other people. But this is my art and this is my name at the end of the day. And I should have, listened to me more than anybody, as Kanye said, who's better than Kanye,
Oh, yes. And finally, Felicia.
I agree with what everyone is saying. This was my first time as well. And I had told myself that I couldn't do it. I had sort of observed the narrative that directing is some lofty shit. And it's not that it's easy, but I think that sometimes we think a certain type of person is supposed to direct. So I had absorbed that. So now I know I can do it again. I'm very interested in, I think I was spoiled because we had such a fantastic feeling on set. Everybody, all of our department heads except sound were women, mainly Black women. So that's kind of spoiled me going into my next projects to surround. I like to surround myself with Black women anyway, but to continue that and just also to remember the joy in the process, the joy in the creating, because that's the only thing people can't take away from you. So I want to make sure I maintain that. And then just on a more practical, I'm really excited about diving more into, you know, exploring my visual style. What is that? And diving deeper into world building. And so, yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. You know, I know that all of you have gotten into programs, crowdfunded, you know, just different things that kind of helped you to accumulate resources to make these projects. What do you feel was like your biggest asset in completing the films that you made? And same style, you know, everybody could just jump in.
I can honestly say my biggest like help for the film was basically my family. The location was my aunt's house. My mother had, well, actually, two of the characters are family members, and like one character, I didn't know he was my uncle until like 2 days before, because somebody had dropped out. And then they were like, hey, he could do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Who is he? And they were like, oh, that's your uncle. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks. I appreciate it. So shout out to Uncle Wayne, who is also named Uncle Wayne in the show, in the film.
Wow. Okay.
I would say the biggest asset was the team. Like my producing team led by like 23-year-old Regina Hoyles, who's a effing beast. And my right hand was my sister Amber, who was like casting associate and office PA and all these things. And then our DP, like I feel like we all just kind of jumped in and wore many hats and made it happen. And that's throughout the process, like even in distribution and marketing, like really, really still held fast to the vision and what we were trying to do. So I feel like that's the biggest asset. And then now, just more practically, our rights are our biggest asset in terms of owning the film and who we license it out to and all that. But that's my distribution talking. But yeah, the team.
Awesome.
Yeah, same. The team. It was a film. It was a school project, so it was second year. But it was. It's funny. It was like a project that I didn't really do with a lot of members in my own class. So there was a lot of people and friends who stepped up and really helped me out, because, you know, like in film school, you kind of have to scramble to find a crew. And I think at that time, a lot of the crew from my own class was already taken. So people from classes above me helped out. And then the wonderful community in New Orleans, like people I didn't even know, like helped me, like friends of friends. I think I started like the summer before that semester, because I was like, this is kind of an impossible second year project. And I mean, I look at it now and I'm like, I cringe. There's so many things that I could have done much better, but it was like at the time a really impossible little project. And yeah, people were really, really very generous. And yeah, I think it's the project that I hold up, that I compare everything else to. And it's like, I use it as the barometer for like, okay, is this a good experience or is this not? Because everybody was just so willing and giving of their time and talent. So yeah, it's great.
I'd have to say the team too. My mom helped fund the film, what I needed initially. And just finding the churches and finding a place came from a crew that I had done a play in the DC Black Theater Festival. And I got to take those same people. I said, hey, you want to do a 48-hour film? We did a 48-hour film in DC. And those same people, I said, hey, will you read this script? Or I want to do a short. They were willing to roll. So I would definitely like to thank them. So it's the team. And I think that how you set up that team, like Haley said before, the tone, you know, and setting the tone, then you have people who want to consistently work with you.
I think so. I had two. First, it was my 9-to-5, because that is how I fund and will be funding all of my stuff. I'm very impatient, so I'm like, at some point I'm gonna have to do crowdfunding, but I was like, let me use the 9-to-5, what it's for. And so that's one of my biggest assets. And then the other one is my team, who I was able to find through being a part of the Black film space community. I went to the line day and went to Reggie, like, I need this person, and that person linked me to someone else. And then it was just a chain. And the biggest thing I wanted to have was all Black cast and crew, post as well. And I was able to do that through that network. So definitely, it really helps. So, because I definitely thought that wasn't going to happen just because of everything that I hear from people that are in the industry. So those are definitely my two biggest assets.
Yeah, so my producing team, they were beasts. Like, shout out to Tony and Jordan and Daniel and Tiffany. I mean, like, we were a bi-coastal production, and it was being workshopped under the AFI program. So I was working in New York, and then they were setting things up. So it was a lot, a behemoth to move, and they just made stuff happen. That's how this film happened. even down to the casting. Like, a lot of our casting was done through Instagram, because we just didn't have the money to find somebody. And it was really hard to find like a Black female or just young Black leads. So, even though we crowdfunded, it was a lot of just my 9 to 5. So kudos to everyone who had to work.
Yes, nice. So we're gonna transition into the Q&A part of this discussion. So I'll just pick out some questions from the crowd. So the first question is from Taylor Montgomery, and any of you can jump in. Everyone doesn't have to answer if you don't feel it applies to you. But he asked, what was the hardest part about making each of your films? What did you learn about yourself during the process? I feel like we answered that to a degree. If there's anything else that you guys want to add to that.
I'll say something real quick. I think what Courtney said was learning yourself and trusting what you think. Because that's the biggest thing. Because however it comes out, then at least you'll be happy with it. But if it comes out another way, you're sitting there thinking like, oh, if I wouldn't have listened, but you can be okay knowing that you listen to your voice. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons for me.
I'll jump in if I could just add to that. Having the freedom to make mistakes, because other groups can make mistakes upwards, they can fall upwards, and we're under pressure. Like, every false move, this could be like $1,000 here, just in life. So I learned through this, I can make mistakes and correct them and still have it be a good decision. So.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Okay. All of your films have such incredible performances. Can you talk about your process for casting? Nicole, you kind of discussed that a little bit. But does anyone want to discuss casting and what it took for you to find your talent?
Yeah, I can jump in. Since this was my first time, I took a bunch of directing classes before dipping my toe in. And some of the directing classes that were like directing actor classes. One of my leads, Pharrell Walker, was one of the actors we were able to work with. I personally was not able to work with her, but when she walked in the room, I was like, oh, she has a presence. And then seeing her perform in her work, I was like, oh, I got to work with her. I want to work with her. I wasn't able to in the workshop. And she just stuck with me. I couldn't get her out of my mind. We tried to do a work with a casting agency. And I was just like, I just want to offer it to Pharrell. And that's what we did. And then once we had Pharrell in place, then we did more ourselves. The three of us put out a casting call and then had people put themselves on tape. And then they came in opposite Pharrell because I needed someone who was going to throw her off her game because she has such a presence. And then that's how we casted Trishana Clark.
Nice.
In my case, it's coming from theater and having done DC Black Theater. Shout out to Glenn and the DC Black Theater and Arts Festival. So I said, hey, do you have a database? And working with people who were actors who happen to have gone to conservatory, and it's also a DP and also a director. They had actor friends.
Nice. All right, so the next question, where would you advise someone who doesn't know where to start on building a crew or getting resources to find a good team?
So I mentioned this before, but there's like so many groups that I just started being a part of. Like there's screenwriter groups on Facebook, there's through Instagram, there's Black Film Space, you have one here, there's so many other ones, and then you just go and you can post for different ones. Or like even when you're networking, like whenever I'm not the networking queen, but whenever I'm on like a panel, or like I know of Cheryl from screenwriting workshops that I attend. So it's having that network, but you being able to post on the groups that I mentioned. Like you can Google like different groups, and there will be Facebook groups, but you can post in there and say, hey, we're looking for a casting crew. Instagram, a lot of people use that. That is what I'm going to for my next project. But there's so many actors that are just looking for their first shot. And that may be where you find the person that you need, that will do a good job, that is looking for that. You want someone who has a mutual benefit. So the first thing maybe I would do is do Instagram. I am going to be doing that. I didn't do that before, but now just seeing so many people that are on there. And then in the different groups, the different film and TV groups of people that are, you'll see a lot of actor groups on Facebook as well. I would definitely recommend going into those to get more of the personal touch, and you can learn more about them.
Yeah, same. I would say the same. It's really tough. I mean, like in film school, it's like you kind of have a crew because you're like required to work on sets. So it's like you have like a false sense of like, oh, I have a team. Yeah, but it's hard. But I think even going to like events, I know like now it's like really hard because there aren't really that many. But before, you know, going to events and going to like workshops and connecting with people there that's helpful because yeah. And yeah, and you make friends in the process. It's cool.
So Adrian Mart had a question. She wanted to know, how did you know when enough was enough and you had a final product in the post-production process, rather than obviously sit and nitpick continuously, tweaking your project?
I think, because I have a job, I work as an editor, and so that's how I came up through this world, and that was my way in. So when I direct like an editor, and just financial reasons, efficiency, get a lot of coverage, because I know when I'm in the cutting room, I'm going to want to see it as a wide that goes to a medium, or just punch it, it's thinking that way. So it helps if you can go into it thinking like an editor, because when you're in post, you're not like, oh my gosh, like what combination of shots are going to give me this emotion. But the rule of thumb for me is when it feels right, when the beat feels right, that's when you know you're done.
Love that.
My editor said, I had to find my editor, and I went through several editors, and that was the part of the process that wasn't fun. But he wanted to be consulted on. He said, if you do something else and you want to use me as an editor, like, I'd like to see the script first. But I think my DP did a good job. I thought he was getting more than enough. I was like, cut it already. But he got a lot of footage. But when it got to the editor said, oh, I wish you could have had, so I didn't know that was a thing. And so it's something that I'll take into it. If I'm considering an editor, or if I like our relationship, I could say give them the log line, tell them what it's about, and say, what are some shots you think would tell the story?
I think when you're ready to throw your laptop out is when you should stop, Literally, I have consistently, like, for this film, like, watched it 100 times, and I was like, I don't know what else I could do better. I like can say the words verbatim with my eyes closed and all the scenes. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I need to move on, especially since, you know, being hung up on one project will not like further progress you in your film career, and especially if you don't know where to start. Well, you can't judge your start if you don't have one. So
I think for me, I just wanted to make sure there was nothing that was going to make me cringe. So like I tried to, so I wanted to be at peace with what it was, so that when I released it and I'm like traveling with it and I'm talking about it, like I've done all that I could. So that was kind of and I think that's going to be a barometer for me going forward, was like, even knowing the constraints, like I've done all I could knowing the constraints. There's nothing that makes me cringe, or if it is, I did what I could to make it less cringy, and I'm at peace with it.
Got it.
Also, post money runs out. That's when you.
Well, you said when the money runs out?
Post money runs out. Yeah. You're done.
That is correct. Crystal Smith would like to know, what was everyone's favorite scene of their project?
Oh, I have this. There's they have a kissing scene at the end, and I remember being on set and it took me off guard, and I was like, that's it. Like, I only took one take of that, which after everybody went home and stuff, I'm like, maybe I should have did more, but it worked. But that was it depicted what I wanted to show it. And it was just,
when I watched it, I said, that's convincing.
Oh, you know which one I'm talking about. Yeah. That was like a one and done. It was, I still, like, I'll watch it and I still am like, oh my God. So yeah, that was it.
Mine is the not fight scene. He is a pastor. I had a male DP, I had a male director, and they wanted to show them fight. And I think, I was like, they don't have to actually fight. It's just give the illusion that they're going to fight. And I think it's the way it was edited and everything. You got the hint that he was going to stand up for his woman. He was going to confront this guy, throw him out the church, or whatever he had to do. So, but I like that scene.
Yeah, I would say mine is like the end, from when Hale walks away and all the end narration, because I look at it now, and even back when I first made it, I was never really satisfied with all the rhythms in it, but I think the ending really was what I wanted throughout the whole film. And I think that's, for me, it kind of hit the correct tone and rhythm that it was very hard for me to get throughout the whole film. So, yeah.
My favorite scene was basically at the end where one of the characters tries to reach for the gun. So he throws a roll at the patriarch. And it's just funny because like that scene wasn't supposed to be in there. Like he was just supposed to reach for the gun, but he's like, let me just throw this roll. And I was like, all right, cool. And like, it was funny because we like took that like 5 times because everybody couldn't stop laughing. And also like we did 2 shots and that roll was hard. So it was hilarious because like you could hear it bounce off her head. So it was great. Yeah.
Anyone else?
My favorite scene was the party scene and the exterior scene, just because all the chaos of it. It was ambitious, and I didn't think I could do it. And then on top of that, like, I did all the storyboarding and yada yada yada. But when we got there, everything was reversed. So we had to rechange the scene, do everything. And I loved it because it was such a challenge. It was so hard, and I was glad it came out relatively nice. So
Felicia?
I love the dance scene. It was also the last scene that we shot, so it was just such a great, fun way to end. And that was one shot. And then, but my favorite scene is the last scene. Like, I love that scene.
Um, Globe Butler asks, if you are co-producing with someone, are there any legal paperwork or contracts or agreements that you would recommend be made for, small indie projects of this scale? I mean, I know none of you guys are lawyers, but if anyone had this scenario and you had any sort of paperwork.
I know with what my next project, my first one, I didn't. But if I am gonna have producers on, something like a just laying out, it doesn't even have to be, I know some people do an NDA, some stuff you can find on the WGA website and kind of just tweak to how you would like it. But it depends on what you're doing it for. Like, do you not want them to share the script? Do you want to make sure that they hold up their end of the bargain, especially if you're paying them? Especially for the smaller projects, you may pay them $50. You may give them a stipend or nothing, but you just want to have an agreement. I've definitely Googled things and then just tweaked it how I want it to be, because I'm not a lawyer, as Londe said. So, and but if you want to have some kind of agreement, there's nothing like set in stone that I do, but I do have something that is just an agreement. Like, we're both going to do this, and these are the rules, for lack of better words.
Right.
I guess just know how you're gonna, like, who has ownership and how the distribution works itself out, and if there's financials connected to it, like if they're funding it, like figure out those financials before you're going into it. A template, I don't know, I guess consult a lawyer, or their PGA has resources. Yeah, but don't just jump into it. Like, get all the information you can.
So this might not apply to everyone, but I'm gonna ask, why not? So Lily asked, I'm wondering about y'all's thoughts and feelings about Blackness in your work when it comes to biracial woman and colorism with mixed Black women. I guess the main question is really like, did you consider colorism? Because that seems to be like a big issue with the depiction of Black women in cinema and television in general.
I did. I wanted, I think for me, it was the overall look. I guess I didn't think like, oh, I don't want her to be fair skinned or light skinned she was being based off of me. So I wanted it to be that, because I a lot of times don't see myself, but I did that on an overall look, versus whether it's skin tone. She was also plus size. So for me, it was the overall. I didn't specifically say, I want her to be this shade because of this. But I just looked at it as an overall view.
All right. Anybody else? If not.
I definitely thought about it, and I continue to think about it in my work, and especially because I'm turning Tender into a feature. So thinking about that from a feature perspective across the cast, and wanting to have as many different shades represented as possible. And also, to Stephanie's point, shades and sizes. But when we talk about Blackness, being very full with what Blackness is, and trying to represent as many of us as possible. So yeah.
Awesome. Anyone else? No. Come to the next question. So the next question, I don't think there's a name associated with this question, is what was the first film that ever influenced you as a filmmaker, and why? None of y'all.
I'm basic. One of the first films that ever like really honestly influenced me is Love and Basketball. I thoroughly enjoy that film so much. I can literally quote it verbatim, but it just made me like fall in love with like the idea of Black love, first of all. And then like second of all, just this average family going through the transitions of life. And I just love all things that are like, I can show you where I am and show you how I'm getting there too. So yeah.
Nice.
My parents, they were like, I don't know, they were stuck in like some golden age of cinema, so it was around all the time. My mom is obsessed with Cary Grant, like, you know, so that was in the background all the time. But for me, it was Trading Spaces, and anything that Eddie does, it's just like, oh yeah, like I vibe with that. I want to do that. I can do that. And then as I got older and realized, okay, I can actually make film, it was 28 Days Later because of Naomi Harris. That was the first time I saw like a strong Black woman that wasn't stereotyped. And she was also feminine. So, and also vulnerable. So, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, there are a lot of firsts, like, you know, there's, I don't know, it's probably something like 90s and like basic for the first, but you know, then there's the first film that influenced me as a filmmaker, a first film where I like saw myself first, you know, so I don't know if I could just pick one.
All right.
Yeah.
Love and Basketball is definitely my top. But I know I felt something when I watched Good Will Hunting. Whatever that was, because it was witty. I know it was purely the writing. It wasn't the people who were necessarily in it. It was something about the writing that was witty and intelligent, and but I also loved Life with the way that script showed and it was a comedy. So it's certain scripts that hit me like you said, certain ways. But it was something about Good Will Hunting that I heard, and it was something about the writing. And I can't necessarily put a finger on it, but
it made an impression on you, basically.
It made an impression on me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyone else have a response to this? If not,
I would say The Wiz. Like it was so like I was like, a film could be this, you know, with Black people and dancing and music and costume and style, and I was just fascinated. I was so fascinated.
Yeah, I would second that. I guess that's first for sure.
You know, obviously in recent times, we've seen like an influx of Black women finally getting, you know, well-deserved, opportunities to be filmmakers and, you know, different areas of the industry. What do you look forward to seeing in terms of Black female characters or just Black films, concepts that you want to see Black women included in, a genre, anything that you look forward to?
Lovecraft Country season 2.
Awesome.
Candyman, Nia DaCosta. I cannot wait to see that in a theater. I will wear my mask, my shield. I cannot wait for that movie.
Nice. And it could be real or imagined, by the way.
I am looking forward to no films about constant Black struggle in a negative light. I do not want to see any more Tyler Perry-ish struggly going through a Black woman finds her light-skinned man films. I just no, you know, like I really hope that this way of our direction of like Black filmmakers and Black film, it's like I've never really seen Black women in like a badass role. So like I just want somebody who's like, oh, I'm Black, unapologetically do what I want, that kind of stuff, without being the difficult one. So yeah.
I want the middle ground. I don't want to see I want to see somebody who makes the wrong decision or makes like really like just something normal, like in a Dardenne film. I'm gonna watch her eat an ice cream cone for like 2 seconds. That's it. And she goes to the store and she has a fight with somebody and she goes walks down the street and nothing. I just want that. Where she's like, she also doesn't have to be a badass. She could be like scared or not scared, or I don't know. she could
Just
be
like a regular person,
a regular
basically.
person. Yeah, it's like I just want to say that just normal, everyday, whatever.
That too.
Yeah.
I also want to see, I've written an erotic romance. I want to see us have agency over our sexuality and our desire, and then be exploring that on our own terms. So I want to see that as well, like us sexing and because we want to, not because, you know, this
We have
man,
trauma. Yeah.
or the society or whatever. It's like we have agency, and it's still messy and complicated, but there's an agency there.
Yeah. To be untethered to the man, to be untethered to that, like we're motivated off our self-will. Yes.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love it.
And
Anything
50
else?
plus- 50
What?
plus romance. Like
I want to see that too.
50 plus
I really
romance,
want to see that.
And is it still as messy as when we were in our 20s and 30s? And you know, it could be messy, but like 50 plus. I mean, what's the hindsight of wisdom? What has it, you know, afforded you when you're dating? And I'm working on a pilot that sort of has some of that in there, but to see second chances. Because I am in film school at 50. I will be finishing this year, and I'm just like, you know,
Congratulations.
when I heard folks talking about you being your own critic, I'm trying not to entertain any conversations with myself about, okay, how old you are and how you're trying to get up here with Lena and Ava and all these other people. And, you know, you've been teaching middle school for your whole life. So those kind.
I want to see that show.
Yeah, for real.
Same.
Romance. Need more romance.
Yeah.
I know you were going to say that, Stephanie.
You already know. I said I'm a hopeless romantic, and I'm fine with that.
Yes.
Because I want to see some Black women falling in love.
Yeah.
I want to see it all up on my TV.
Yeah.
Not into lust, not just into lust. Or lust if they want it.
It can be in love too. I want to see it all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
epic.
Just take more adventures too. Like just, you know, I want her to be a time traveler or an astronaut or, you know, and it's not like weird, you know, it's not like
Not
a
a
certain
thing.
type of Blackness. Yeah.
Like the Black outcast.
Yep.
You know, Black girl who acts white or whatever. Yeah. Cheryl, you have a lot of veteran actors for your projects. A lot of people who probably jump at that. Denzel, Lawrence Fishburne, Angela Bassett, so many. So definitely get that pilot going.
I'm sorry. I also want to like more queer characters, queer Black women characters, Black women with various abilities, like, you know, the women that we know, our friends, our family, who we don't necessarily get to see enough, the center of their own story, not supporting characters, not the sidekick, but the center of their own story.
Nice. Awesome. So we're about to wrap up, but I'd love if you all could just talk about like what's next for you, how can people stay in touch with you, and just stay abreast of what you have going on.
Well, I'll go. I'm Cheryl Jackson on all platforms, the way it's spelled. I know it's a little weird. But I would love to do another short, and I think that's all I can get in and trying to graduate in December. And so you can follow me at Cheryl Jackson on all platforms.
All right, I'll just pick you guys. Nicole.
You can find me, Nikki Taylor Roberts, just like it's right there, NIKKI Taylor Roberts, Rocket Light Films on Instagram and all social. feature next. Like that's the aim, right? So yeah, just keep pushing. Follow me, say hi. I'm very friendly. So
My name is Stephanie Philpott. You can find me on Instagram, Vision Board Living. I put it in my little chat box here. I'm actually working on my first web series. I start pre-production next month and plan to shoot at the end of summer. It's going to center around a Black woman who goes to therapy for the first time. I am trying to normalize that. I want it to also be something that I wish I would have had 5 years ago when I first went. But it's going to show different ways of why you may want to go, not why you need to go. And I want to shed that light because we have a lot of different reasons why we think we should be going. And some we just don't think is worth it, but it is. So yeah, so follow me to keep up on that.
Awesome.
You can follow me at Felicia Pride, and I'm working on Tender the Feature, and I had a breakthrough on this film this week, let me tell you, because I was like, I don't know what this film is. Now I know it, now it's a movie. So I'm excited about that. And we have a Patreon. If you go to tendermovie.com, we have a Patreon that's taking people behind the scenes of the development of the feature film. And as part of that, I host these monthly called My First Time with directors talking about their first features. So they're pay what you can fundraisers. We had Heidi Saman talking about her film Namor for our first one. And a couple of weeks ago, last week, we had Tyarisha Poe talking about Sella and the Spades. So you can look out for that. And then I also run a service called the Create Daily, which is a newsletter I send out every week that has its free opportunities, funds, grants, programs for creators, especially those of us who are underrepresented.
Awesome. Courtney? Yeah.
Oh, hey. You can find me on Instagram at Court_TOUC. I'm currently working on a feature-length film about a man who lost his wife and goes on a road trip with his wife's mistress. So yeah. And then I am also working on making my own Black tarot cards coming soon this summer. So yeah, check that out. Look on my Instagram and see where I'm at with that.
Cool.
Love it.
Sounds amazing.
Yes, it does. Best of luck. I love those kinds of things. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Haley Anderson. I'm not on Instagram right now, but I'm working on feature version of Get Out Fast. I think I'm about to have a breakthrough on my script. Yeah, and almost there, and then writing a few other things. So yeah, slowly making progress.
Well, congratulations to all of you. I wish you the best of luck from one filmmaker to another. Thanks for representing for Black women in film and television, and continue doing your thing. And thank you again.
Thank you, Londe, and especially thank you for all that you do for Black creators and Black filmmakers,
course.
and that you're a filmmaker yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you.
Where can we follow you and see your work?
Oh, okay. You can follow me at Londe Yusuf. You can also follow one of my latest films, Love and Submission. That is a dramatic short about two Muslim women that find out they have a mutual third party. And we're developing the feature film for that. I'm also developing a feature film entitled Kofo, which is about a Nigerian American bride. She confronts her mother about being too controlling with planning her wedding. And she ends up finding out a secret about her dad, which prompts them all to confront him in Nigeria. So she goes to Nigeria with her family. Yeah, and then I'm working on some other stuff, but those are like the two more pertinent things. So yeah, so thank you. And then also follow Black Film Space to be connected to, it seems at this point, an international community of Black content creators that are exchanging resources, ideas, We have screenwriting workshops, panels. I mean, you name it. Any resource that you need as a Black content creator, you can definitely hit us up. If you want to find out more about our membership plan, you can also contact us at info@blackfilmspace.com. So yeah, thank you again to the Future of Film is Female for giving us this platform to celebrate these ladies and their films. And again, I wish you all the best. Thank you to all of the attendees. And thank you to Karen Coleman for organizing this. And shout out to the New York Times too for featuring you ladies. So, all right. Have a great night, everyone. And take care. I'll talk to you all soon. I'll see you at the movies.
Bye. Thank you.